Happy holidays, folks, and welcome to episode 423 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, December 29th, 2021. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great rest of the year. This is the final edition of 2021. Looking to close it out with a bang before we head on into 2022. Going on into the new year, if you want to send in questions to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very channel, on this very video rather, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So, speaking of which, let's get right to it with the YouTube questions from Noel from last week for this week. Their first question was, now with AEW having an Owen Hart tournament for both the men and the women, should both winners get their choice of what champion they can challenge for? Yeah, I mean, so far they haven't announced any stakes for the Owen Hart tournament, the Owen, as I assume a lot of people are going to be calling it, which is a cool name for it if that's what they're going to be going for. It's not happening until May, so they really don't have to announce anything right now. They probably won't until January, February, whatever, as it gets closer. There might be more details on tonight's the New Year's Smash show. Tonight's edition of Dynamite, we'll see. They'll probably wait a little bit longer until we get closer, but it would make sense. I mean, pretty much with everything that AEW has done so far, I mean, the ring itself that they've had contested for over the last 2 or 3 years, the Dynamite Diamond Ring, it's a cool little prop that's only ever been held by MJF, which I like, but it doesn't really have any stakes beyond that. I know it's like $10,000 or $100,000 ring or whatever it is, something completely ridiculous. And that doesn't have any championship implications attached to it, but pretty much anything else AEW has done, I will give them the benefit of the doubt here, has had stakes attached to it. So I assume this will be no exception. It would make sense if the winners of both the men's and women's tournament get some sort of a title shot, whether it be for the AEW World Championship, the AEW Women's World Championship, the TBS Women's Championship, whatever it might be. That would make the most sense. So we'll see. Maybe it is just the trophy in that sense. It's like, hey, hooray, that's cool. And maybe that serves as a stepping stone for whoever wins for both the men and the women. But I would assume that it will lead to a title shot or some sort of meaningful push from that point forward. No's second question here. Top 5 movies of 2021 in your opinion. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter Machine is also on YouTube Reel. Honestly, with John Ritland does awesome work, as I say every week. Check out his stuff. He sent in a similar question, which I'll get to now as well. He also asked, non-wrestling related, but what would be your favorite and least favorite movies of the year and why? So let's get right into it. I feel like this is my favorite question from today's batch. And you guys sent in a lot of great questions having to do with Day 1, AEW, WWE. I love movies, though. I love talking about movies. This is not wrestling related, like John said, but I do talk quite a bit about movies, I feel, on hashtag AskGSM, and as we close out the year, it is only fitting and only appropriate that we look back on the best and worst of 2021 in movies. Now, I'm only going off of what I've seen, and I feel like I've seen a good chunk of the big movies that came out this year. Now, I did not see Space Jam, for example. I heard that was fucking ass. So I can't say that's the worst. It probably would be in the worst category, but I haven't seen it personally. I'm only going off of what I saw. And some movies were so, like, I didn't give a shit about them, so I didn't even bother to go out of my way to watch it. Like the Home Sweet Home Alone video or movie that came out on Disney+. John actually asked me about that a few weeks ago. I have yet to watch it. I probably will watch it just to see how indeed bad it is. I haven't seen that, though. I didn't see Dune. I haven't seen that yet. I know that's on HBO Max. I don't have HBO Max. Alexis's brother does, and it's just a mess trying to get access to it. So I got to watch that one of these days. I know that's a long movie. It's part 1 of 2. Probably will watch that at some point. That's on my list. I'm trying to think what else came out. The Matrix just came out. I didn't see The Matrix. I didn't see Mortal Kombat either. I feel like a lot of these movies were on HBO Max, and I didn't see any of those. I mean, I saw some of them. Like I saw the Snyder Cut, for example. I would put that in the worst category. I thought Snyder Cut was not good at all. Just way too fucking long. I'm not a DC guy anyway, but it was pretty ass. And it's not just the fact, oh, it's a DC movie and you're a Marvel fan. I saw The Eternals. I thought that wasn't very good. By Marvel standards, that was definitely among my least favorite movies of the year. Not just for Marvel and all the shows and movies they've done this year, but like of any movie I saw in theaters. I walked out of it very underwhelmed. And I didn't have high hopes to begin with. So The Eternals was meh. I would put that in the worst category as well. The top 5 movies for me are easy. My top 5 favorite movies, and you said top 5 movies, so, I mean, Jean said favorite, No said top 5, meaning like the best. But these are, I was looking through the movies I saw, and I looked at an article listing the top movies that were to come out in 2021, what I saw, what I didn't see. So I think I wrote down all the movies that I watched, and I'm sure I forgot some or, missed some or whatever, but I'm pretty sure I listed every movie I saw this year right here. But the top 5 that I would include, and this was not difficult to decipher, to determine. My top 5 movies of the year would be, in no part, I guess in this order, Spider-Man No Way Home, or not No Way Home, Far From Home, just came out obviously. One of my favorite Marvel movies, easily my favorite movie of the year, and there were other great movies as well. I would probably put that at number 1. The rest of these are not ranked, because I would have to think about it. So Spider-Man would be number 1. Rounding out the top 5, though, would be No Time to Die, the 007 movie from October. Fantastic film. I love the 007 movies anyway with Daniel Craig. I love Skyfall. I like Spectre. I sound like a fake fan. I love the Daniel Craig movie specifically. I like Spectre a lot more than most. I did enjoy the movie, and not just because Batista was in it, but I liked it. The other ones that came out, Quantum of Solace, I saw a long time ago. I love Skyfall, though. I thought No Time to Die was as good as Skyfall, if not better. Just a fantastic film. So, love that movie. The Tender Bar actually just came out in limited theaters. Now, I saw a screening of that because I was going to maybe interview someone in the film. Didn't work out, but I still got to see a free screening of it in New York City about a week or 2 ago. Great experience, and the movie was excellent. It's about a writer growing up and going to college and all this other stuff, and as a writer myself, I felt like I could relate to certain parts of the movie. Not the absent father storyline. It's based off a true story, which is also fascinating. But Christopher Lloyd is in it. What's his name? Ben Affleck's in it. He's great. I think it's a George Clooney movie, along with a few other notable names. The guy from Ready Player One, the main kid in that movie, is the main kid in this movie as well. Just a really, really good movie. I absolutely loved it. That might be number 2. Maybe it was just the experience of seeing a movie before it came out in a private screening for the press. I thought that was awesome. But yeah, really enjoyed The Tender Bar. I think it's going to be out on Amazon Video or Amazon Prime next month. So check it out when it hits that. No Time to Die, The Tender Bar, Spider-Man, The Suicide Squad, I thought was excellent as well. Again, not just, it's all Marvel stuff. No, I love The Suicide Squad. The original one from 5 years ago was pretty bad. I liked it at the time, but looking back on it, just wasn't really that good, especially compared to this one. And again, not just for John Cena. It had a great cast, very funny, very entertaining. I haven't watched it back since then, but I'm going to have to go back and watch it at some point. It was just a really funny movie. And I walked away from it thinking it was probably one of the best DC movies I've seen. Definitely not better than The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises, I would say, from about 10, 15 years ago. But still a great flick. I really enjoyed The Suicide Squad from earlier in the summer. And then rounding out my top 5, Nobody. I forgot the name of the guy. He's in Better Call Saul. If you said the name, I would remember it. I could easily look it up. It's not that important. Christopher Lloyd was in that one, too. I swear it's not a theme here. He did add to my enjoyment of the film. That movie was fucking great. I think it was the second movie I saw in theaters this year, after everything opened up again. The first one was Godzilla vs. Kong. Enjoyed that one, a very good movie. I enjoy the Godzilla Kong movies as well. But I would have to go with Nobody above Godzilla vs. Kong. I thought it was just a really well done movie. It reminded me a lot of Ben Affleck's The Accountant from 5 years ago. Just a secret, badass action film. And I feel like it got a lot of praise at the time. I actually just got it on DVD and digital download and whatever for Christmas a few days ago, so I intend to rewatch it one of these days with members of my family that haven't seen it yet. But Nobody was fucking awesome. So those are my top 5 movies of the year. Spider-Man Far From Home, The Tender Bar, did I write Far From Home again? No Way Home. It's No Way Home. I don't know why I keep saying Far From Home. That's the second one. It's confusing. So again, Nobody, Spider-Man, No Way Home, The Tender Bar, No Time to Die, and The Suicide Squad. For my least favorite movies, I already mentioned The Eternals. I thought was not good. I saw the Snyder Cut at home on, again, Alexis's brother's HBO Max. Did not like that at all. I did very much enjoy Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Venom 2. I like that a lot. I actually really liked Halloween Kills. That's going to be in a lot of people's least favorite movies of the year. I'm sure John included. I saw his review. He does a great job of those, by the way. I liked it. I liked those movies. I knew what to expect going in. It wasn't as good as the first one, far from it, but I still enjoyed that movie. I love the Halloween stuff, so Halloween Kills was enjoyable in my opinion. Not my least favorite, but it was still very good. Black Widow I enjoyed. Shang-Chi I thought was great. Now I would put that second behind the Spider-Man movie for best Marvel movies of the year. It would be Spider-Man, and then Shang-Chi, Black Widow, and then Eternals. I saw Cruella over the summer. That was actually very good. That would be an honorable mention for my top 5. That was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. I think with Emma Stone as Cruella. I thought she did a great job. I saw Quiet Place Part 2 in a drive-in movie theater. Liked it. It kind of just felt like a lot of the same from the first movie, which I thought was good. I didn't really get all the hype around it. I thought it was a good movie, though. I think I liked the first one better. The second one just kind of bored me for a big part of it, which I know is the point because it's all quiet shit. I get it. It's in the title of the movie. Maybe I liked it more at the time when I saw it because it was a double feature. It was that and Fast and Furious 9, which I would probably put that in my least favorite movies of the year. That was completely fucking ridiculous, which I know a lot of the movies I've mentioned have been or are or were, but that movie specifically, like being in space, and I've never been a big Fast and Furious fan anyway, but I liked the last few. I liked Hobbs and Shaw. I saw that 2 years ago, so I'm thinking, okay, F9, Fast and Furious 9, whatever they're calling it, should be good. It should be fine. And then I saw it and I'm like, that was pretty mediocre, personally. Didn't really like that one. Free Guy I saw not when it came out, but later on I think I rented it or something with my brother. I actually enjoyed it. I watched it about a month ago. It was actually a pretty good movie. It reminded me a lot of Ready Player One with like the references and the humor, and I don't know, I like that one. That was pretty much all the movies that I saw this year. Oh, and Jungle Cruise, too. I saw Jungle Cruise and actually really liked it. Again, not just because I'm a rock mark, but I thought they did a good job with it. It was entertaining. Same woman from Quiet Place Part 2. Forgot her name. But John Krasinski's wife, Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt and The Rock were the main stars of that movie. And they did a great job. I really very much enjoyed it. So those would be my favorite, least favorite, and everything else in between movies of 2021. No L also from YouTube, or from Facebook rather. This was their Facebook question. Who do you see having a bright future in wrestling from AEW? A lot of people. Jungle Boy, I think, has a very bright future ahead of him. If he can kind of get the mic skills down, I think he can really be a star in any promotion he winds up in. Him, MJF, obviously. MJF is only, 23, 24 years old. The kid is the definition of a prodigy. He's younger than me, which is crazy. And I'm not old by any stretch. I don't consider myself to be old anyway. He's younger than me, and the kid is amazing. He's going to be making a lot of money when his deal with AEW comes up in a few years. The bidding war, I'm sure he'll end up in AEW ultimately, but he should play the two sides against each other if he was smart. If he was a smart business guy, that's exactly what he would do. He is a fucking money-making machine. He's fantastic. MJF, Sami Guevara, I think is very good. He could have a bright future ahead of him. World champion, maybe, but he's also great. I'm thinking from AEW, they have a lot of bright young stars. Dante Martin, I think, has a lot of potential. There's a lot. I think Britt Baker, if she can kind of stay, the course, has a very bright future ahead of her. She's great. Those would probably be the top ones. Darby Allin, obviously, can make a lot of money, a lot more money for AEW if they can stay the course with him. He's great. Those are probably, the four pillars, really. The four pillars of AEW is who I would say. Brian Pillman Jr., I think, could have a bright future ahead of him if they actually bothered to push him at some point. They did for about a minute in that MJF feud, but that really went nowhere. That was kind of a waste of time in retrospect. That was, I think it was fine, but I think he himself has potential if he can continue to kind of build off of what he already has as far as his skill set is concerned. Yeah, there's a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people in AEW, but those would probably be the obvious answers and my answers as well. At Kyle Rochelle 19 from Twitter, what is going to happen with Day 1? Because there are matches I'm looking forward to. Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan, the Fatal 4-Way for the WWE Championship, and Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Are they going to wrestle on Saturday after having not appeared on Monday's Raw or the live events. So that's the main question right now. Just because WWE is advertising the card as is, like on Monday's Raw, they were acting as if the 4-way was going to happen as advertised, the Raw Women's Championship match was going to happen as advertised, and Brock versus Roman. All the matches you just said. They didn't pretend like it wasn't going to happen. To me, that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that they will happen. I mean, they've done this stuff before. Well, they'll continue to advertise stuff. I mean, look no further than Bianca and Sasha. They had a better idea at that point earlier on, where I feel like before SummerSlam that Sasha was not going to make the show. Yet they continued to advertise it anyway. This is a bit different. They're transparent with the fact that they're not there due to COVID. With Sasha, we had no idea why she wasn't there. Now we're all pretty aware. We're all kind of in the same, we all kind of understand they're out sick currently. From what I understand, I think if you're not showing symptoms, I think the latest update as far as a few days ago, as recently as a few days ago, is that if you're not showing symptoms, then the quarantine time is like 5 days. I mean, that's what I had read somewhere from one of those websites, one of those wrestling websites. I forgot exactly who said it. But if that's the case, and these people were sick, late last week or were exposed or whatever, they should be fine for the pay-per-view. I wouldn't get your hopes up that all matches as advertised will happen. Anything can change. Like Omos was on the live events he was at the MSG house show that we went to on Sunday. Alexis and I had a great time. And then on Monday's Raw, he wasn't there. So I don't think he was sick because he was on the show the night before. Like Rollins, Big E, Bobby all missed Sunday's show. They weren't on Raw either. That made sense. Almost being on the Sunday show but not on the Monday show was weird to me when he was advertised to face AJ on that show on Raw on Monday night. But anyway, I think my guess, WWE always finds a way to make things happen. This is a big show. This is a bigger show than Extreme Rules or a lot of their other B-level pay-per-views. They're really treating this like a big deal. This is like a Nick Khan pet project, apparently, that he really wants to see the show succeed so they can do more of these in the future on New Year's Day, which is why they loaded up this card with all the matches that they did and the ones that you mentioned specifically. With that being said, I think they'll find a way to get those people on the show. Unless they're completely down sick and they just can't compete and they're at risk of spreading it and whatever. I'm not saying this is the smart thing, but unless they're completely down and out, they will find a way to get them on the show. I mean, we had just heard the other day, I didn't read the full report, mind you, but Fightful had reported that WWE was no longer requiring COVID tests, which seems like a bad time to be releasing that sort of information at the peak of, maybe not the peak of the pandemic, but a lot more people are getting sick now than ever before in the last 2 years. So maybe not exactly the best time to be lifting COVID restrictions, but especially when it's a combat sport too. A combat, activity, hand-to-hand type shit, whatever, you know what I mean. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I think everyone will appear. If they're feeling fine and it's been long enough and it's been a week, which doesn't exactly sound long, but in their eyes it might, they will find a way to get them on the show. Specifically the top people like Roman and Brock, definitely, Big E. Like if a member of the 4-way can't make the show, they'll just make it a triple threat or a one-on-one match. That's not that big of a deal. Becky and Liv could always be saved for a different time. Roman and Brock is really the crown jewel, no pun intended, of that show. That has to happen as advertised, and if it doesn't, they're fucked. I mean, I'm sure Brock is fine. Roman, I think, was the one that probably, I assume, isn't sick. He just doesn't want to be there to get sick. You know what I mean? He may show up for that show. I could see him wanting to miss live events that don't really matter. If he misses the pay-per-view, which is his choice, if so, that's not good for WWE, and they probably should figure out a backup plan just in case he doesn't make it, or he doesn't want to appear out of safety precaution, which again makes complete sense. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine, as I mentioned earlier, his first question was, with the rise in cases, is it possible WWE will be forced to limit capacities at their events, or will it be just an everyone for themselves type of situation, regardless of the situation? I tend to assume it's going to be more of the latter, for better or for worse, more of the worse. I mean, that's pretty dumb. It really depends. I think WWE tends to follow suit with what other companies are doing. But then again, though, a lot of sports organizations shut down when the pandemic first started. WWE did not. They really try to continue running shows. There's no off-season in WWE. In most of wrestling, but specifically WWE, they tried to tape shit before it got bad, and they tried to just bend over backwards to really tape those shows and get programming on the air, which wasn't exactly imperative. I mean, some shows were appreciated to kind of distract us from the reality of the pandemic at that time, but some of those shows they were doing, a lot of those Raws were completely unnecessary, especially if it put the performers at risk. Thankfully, no one has died or anything. I mean, if that were to happen, this company is fucked. They are really lucky no one has gotten super sick and died from COVID from working at WWE in the last 2 years. But anyway, going forward, as far as everyone for themselves, that's what I kind of assume the situation is. I mean, just looking at the United States or the world in general right now, I mean, there's been lockdowns elsewhere. We haven't had another lockdown since they started to ease restrictions earlier on in the year. And again, the pandemic is worse now than it was 6 months ago, a year ago when it first started. More people are getting sick now. I'm sure you know a handful of people that have gotten COVID in the last week or two. I mean, I know I sure have. Thankfully haven't been in contact with anyone, which is good. But as far as people that I know, friends, family, a lot of people have gotten it over the last week or two. Not to say that it's deadly. I mean, it can be if you're not vaccinated. That's a different topic for a different day. But as far as, like I said, the restrictions and whatever, I know for other sports organizations, they've limited games and, canceled games and stuff like that. I don't think it's going to go back to what it was. And it's crazy too, because, I mean, when COVID first started and it wasn't nearly as bad as it is now, they shut down everything. Like no shows, not just for WWE, but like restaurants, everything was closed. We were in complete lockdown. And we don't have that now. We are not going into another lockdown. I just don't think they want to do that again. They're like, all right, we did it once. At this point, if you want to go out and risk it, it's up to you. If not, that's your choice as well. I feel like that's the state that we're in. I mean, again, I didn't expect us to go into the lockdown that we did a year and a half ago and for the entire world to shut down for a little while. And I guess it could happen again. My prediction is that it won't, and WWE will be no exception. Could they go back to the Thunderdome? Yeah, but if they're not being forced to, they're definitely not going to be. Ring of Honor took care of all their talent. They didn't run shows with fans for a very long time, and it ultimately cost them in the end. I don't think WWE would have that same issue with the amount of money they have, but if they don't have to, they're not going to. They're not that type of company, from what I can understand. So I think it will be more of an everyone for themselves type of situation. If you want to go to these shows and get COVID potentially, because they're not... I mean, when I went to MSG, they required a Vax card. An identification because it was New York City. Boston, I think, is the same way. We went to a Dynamite there 2 months ago. Yeah, we had to bring our Vax card there as well, or a negative test. Which, I mean, you could be vaccinated and still have it, so people still could have been walking into the show with COVID, whether they're asymptomatic or not. And I guess we just don't know. You got to be careful regardless. I mean, but that's the risk that you take by going to these shows. So I feel like that's going to be the mindset. That's just how it's going to be going forward. I already talked about the movies question. His other question, do you have any bold predictions for AEW and WWE, like someone winning an unexpected championship, or someone unexpected winning a championship, or turning face or heel, etc.? John knows, RJ knows, everyone knows. I say this every year. I said this last week. It's hard for me to make predictions every new year because I really don't know what to predict. I mean, I feel like, these aren't exactly, you say bold. Bold predictions. The only bold prediction I have said in recent months that I feel like could happen, and not a lot of people are talking about this unless I'm mistaken, and unless his contract just isn't up next year, I feel like there's a chance AJ Styles could leave WWE and go to AEW. I feel like that's a bold prediction just because not a lot of people are talking about AJ as far as when his contract is up. To my understanding, I thought his contract was up in 2019 and he had re-signed for a 3-year deal. Maybe it was a 5-year deal, and that's why we're not talking about AJ leaving in 2022. I thought he was done next year. And then after that, he's done wrestling. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but if it is up next year, I think there's a good chance he goes to AEW. That is my biggest bold prediction for 2022. Beyond that, I don't really know. I mean, this isn't exactly bold, but I think MJF is going to beat Adam Page for the World Championship at Double or Nothing, and then CM Punk is going to take it off of him, and then Darby Allin could take it off of him. That's probably all not going to happen next year, but that's how I see it playing out. I say not bold because I've seen other people say the same thing, and I just think it makes sense. Thunder Rosa taking the women's championship off of Britt Baker. Again, just kind of expect that to happen. I don't know. I don't know as far as, like, I feel like I would have never expected Christian to wrestle again in 2021 or CM Punk to return to wrestling in 2021. So for maybe Ronda Rousey, you know what? Maybe that's another bold one. Ronda Rousey wrestles again in 2022. She just had her kid a couple of months ago. Maybe she kind of gets that out of her system, and she trains for an in-ring return, and she comes back in 2022. Maybe that's another thing that happens as well. So beyond that, I really can't think of any. Maybe I'll have more next week. But those are my biggest quote-unquote bold predictions for 2022 for WWE and AEW. At Iwagoon91, or I guess another one too, maybe Lance Archer and or Brian Cage leave AEW. Again, maybe not exactly bold because they're not doing shit right now in AEW. I know they're probably both hurt. But they just, at this point, they feel like such afterthoughts. I would not be surprised if their contracts were not renewed or they just opt to leave. That would be my guess. At Iwagoon91, before I start, I want to wish you a Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Happy New Year. And he says, on to the questions. What did you think, or what do you think of the year that Bryan Danielson / Daniel Bryan had? He had a fantastic year. Between WWE and AEW, I don't know if I would call him my wrestler of the year, but Danielson had definitely one of the best years of anyone in either company. I would probably say, and Punk had a very good year, but he was only around in the last 4 months of the year in AEW. Danielson was around for a majority of the year. He did miss from May through August because he left WWE at the end of April and then resurfaced in AEW in September. So he did miss the entire summer season, but he still had an amazing year. I mean, for me, my top 3 wrestlers of the year, it would probably be Roman, then Kenny, and then Bryan. Even though Bryan missed a good chunk of the year, the months that he was around for, he made those months matter. I mean, just to quickly recap, in the first 2 or 3 months of the year, he was having some great matches with Cesaro on SmackDown. Cesaro actually beat him at one point. Shinsuke Nakamura beat him clean on SmackDown, had a great mini match with him on the show. Obviously went on to feud with Roman Reigns and Edge going into WrestleMania, one of my favorite WrestleMania main events in recent memory. They had a fantastic feud, fantastic match. Put over Roman strong on SmackDown. In leaving, his final match was for the Universal Championship. Shows up in AEW, has a great debut over there at All Out. His first major match for AEW, his first match period, was on Dynamite. New York City, biggest crowd to date, has one of the best matches of the year. 30-minute draw with Kenny Omega. Another fantastic match a couple of months later with Adam Page on TV for the World Championship. 60-minute draw. Another excellent match. In between there, had some really good matches with Bobby Fish, Minoru Suzuki on TV. Again, one of the better matches of this year. Had a fantastic match on Rampage on that pre-show they did. All the members of the Dark Order that he faced. Had some other really good matches with, I think it was Nick Jackson or Matt Jackson. I think it was Nick Jackson on Rampage. Rocky Romero, among many others. He's had a lot of awesome matches this year. And, turning heel, reinventing himself as a heel recently. He's done fantastic work. So, to me, he would be like my third best wrestler of 2021, behind Roman and Kenny. Only because he missed about 4 or 5 months there in the middle of the year. Do you think CM Punk will win PWI's Comeback of the Year award? I don't see why not. The only other person that would make sense would be Christian. Christian was flat out retired. CM Punk willingly stepped away. Christian had no choice. And they both stepped away in 2014. And then they both had their comeback matches in 2021. That to me is wild. That is crazy. For 2 of my favorite wrestlers of all time to wind up in the same company in 2021, to me is just fucking crazy. If William Regal goes and it shows up in AEW, I may have to stop watching WWE altogether. I'm just kidding. But, Regal's another one who he's one of my favorites of all time. But Christian, Punk never thought they would wrestle again, and they did. And now they're in the same company, which is awesome. But anyway, what was I even saying? Oh, yeah, Comeback of the Year. Christian had a very good year, I thought. Some very good matches on TV with Josh Alexander in Impact, Ace Austin in Impact, Brian Myers in Impact. Had a very good match with Kenny Omega. A great match in the first ever Rampage. Very good match with Omega at All Out. Some good matches on TV with Matt Hardy, Matt Sydal, Frankie Kazarian. And he's looked great for a guy that was out for 7 years. Punk also has come back and looked great. Picked up right where he left off. Some very good matches on TV with Bobby Fish Daniel Garcia, Matt Sydal as well, Eddie Kingston. Now moving on to MJF, which is cool. Looked very good in that 6-man tag team match last week. Again, Punk really hasn't missed a beat. On the mic or in the ring, it's been great to have him back. But yeah, I feel like Punk would be a shoo-in for that Comeback of the Year award. If it was any other year, it would probably be Christian. But because Punk came back, unfortunately for Christian's sake, it's got to be Punk as the winner of that award. Maybe Shibata in New Japan, although he hasn't wrestled yet, he's coming back, which is just even more miraculous than Punk. Because a lot like Christian, he was forced to retire, but his injury was a lot more severe. It wasn't, I think it was concussion related, but he fucked up his brain. He is coming back in 2022 at Wrestle Kingdom. Again, he hasn't wrestled yet, but I could also see Shibata winning that year, that PWI Comeback of the Year award as well. Their third question here. Do you suppose Adam Cole will become AEW World Champion in 2 years? And do you see his realliance with Red Dragon will be more uneasy due to his recent feud with O'Reilly on NXT? Could he be World Champion in 2 years? I don't see why not. I don't know if it's going to be in 2023 exactly, or 2024. I could totally see Adam Cole becoming AEW World Champion at some point. He just kind of fits that role to me. He was NXT Champion. He was Ring of Honor World Champion. I think PWG Champion as well. I don't see why he wouldn't be a World Champion in AEW. I mean, they have a stacked roster. That's the only thing working against them. NXT, for as stacked as their roster is, was not as stacked as AEW's is right now, with a lot of people that could be World Champion at this very moment. As far as his realliance, as you said, with Red Dragon, I like the fact that he and Kyle kind of showed a little bit of tension before they ultimately aligned last week on the show. Because again, AEW isn't dumb. Tony Khan isn't dumb. It wasn't technically his storyline, but I'm glad they're not ignoring the fact that O'Reilly and Adam Cole had a blood feud literally 4 months ago. Kyle O'Reilly kicked Adam Cole out of NXT. Now Kyle O'Reilly's in the same company as NXT, which is cool. So yeah, I'm hoping that they don't completely ignore it. Hopefully they can, acknowledge that tonight on Dynamite, or have a promo segment with O'Reilly explaining why he's forgiven Cole. I mean, technically, WWE didn't really acknowledge it when they came over from Ring of Honor, because they had a blood feud in Ring of Honor. Then 6 or 7 months later, they both showed up in WWE on the same page, and they never bothered to explain what had happened in that 6 months, 6 or 7 months, that would have allowed them to get back on the same page. AEW, I'm sure, will be better with that, which is good. And even Adam Cole said on Being the Elite on Monday that he and Kyle O'Reilly have a lot to work out. So hopefully that does translate to some stuff on TV and not just on Being the Elite. At E138 from Twitter, we'll close out with their questions here, their final 4 questions. Cody Rhodes has said in interviews that his challenge, quote unquote, is, again, quote, going for something that has never been done before in wrestling, unquote. Do you think that those comments mean something? Example, his character is just nuanced in a way fans aren't used to, or is it all just lip service? Cody Rhodes is just, his character is a mess right now. I know he just won the TNT title back for the 3rd time. As far as doing stuff that isn't, that we haven't seen before, I honestly don't know. I was wondering the same thing. I can't even venture a guess. I mean, I think he doesn't want to do the traditional route of turning heel. He wants to be a babyface parading around as a heel, which, to me, doesn't exactly sound new. I mean, we've seen it before. John Cena acted like a fucking asshole, and he was a babyface. Roman Reigns, same thing over the years. He acted like an asshole, but he was still technically a babyface. That's what you call a tweener. And that's what Cody Rhodes is right now. That doesn't exactly sound new. So, I don't know. He wants to be challenged. Dude, just shut the fuck up and turn heel. I mean, whatever he's doing now just isn't working, because no one is cheering him. Even his home state, he got half booed in Atlanta, or Marietta, whatever, in his own, state of Georgia. So, anyway, I don't know what he's talking about. I feel like a lot of Cody's ideas just, he's very good. I'm a big Cody fan, but I feel like he is Dusty he is his father in the same way that Dusty had some ideas that were just fucking stupid, like doing Dusty finishes constantly. Cody Rhodes, I feel like, is similar in that respect, and doing stuff that is just fucking stupid. And then later on, he admits that it was fucking stupid, not including the tattoo. I'm talking about from a booking standpoint. I feel like the Stardust thing, he could tell you, oh, it was a shit gimmick towards the end. That guy was all in on that shit. Don't let him tell you otherwise. For a long time, he was saying, oh, it's my idea, I want to do it, I love it. And now all of a sudden, no, I didn't want to do it anymore, it was shit. No, he was all in on that shit. If you would have asked him back in 2014, 2015, he would have told you the same thing. Oh, I love Stardust, I love making it work, that's the challenge. Well, it fucking sucked. So, and that was a WWE problem as well. he's doing that same shit now in AEW. He likes to go against the grain when it just isn't really all that necessary to me. So I just don't really get it. But I don't know what those comments are supposed to mean. He says a lot of shit he doesn't actually mean, or it just doesn't make any sense. Like those promos he was cutting months ago on TV about ending racism and all this other shit. Like, dude, what are you even talking about? I feel like, to me, this is just more of that, and like you said, it's just more lip service. But I would love to be proven wrong, though. The second question, thoughts on Sammy Guevara's TNT Championship reign? It was good, albeit unspectacular, though. Didn't really defend it as much as other people did. Darby, he was champion for 6 months. Darby had a lot of title defenses in those 6 months. There was a stretch where he wasn't really defending it because he was in the midst of that Team Taz feud. But once that wrapped up, between that wrapping up and when he lost it to Miro, he was defending that championship almost every week against various Dark Order guys. Ended up losing it to Miro, beat Scorpio Sky on TV. You know, I feel like with Darby, he had a great reign. Cody's first reign was very good with the open challenges and facing free agents and people that we aren't really used to seeing in that spot. It was a weekly open challenge. You can't do the open challenge shit every fucking week, but it was great at the time. Brody's reign was very brief. I mean, Brody was great. He did have a good reign for the month that he had it, but to call him the greatest champion, I know he passed away, and rest in peace. The anniversary was this past week, but to call him the best champion, it's just because he's gone. I mean, I promise you, just if he was here now, I'm sure people would not be saying that. Not that it really matters. I mean, you could believe whatever you want, but, you know, his reign was cut short by Cody. Don't know why, but it was. And then Cody lost it a month later to Darby Allin. And then Sami was champion. Miro was champion for a little while. He had an underwhelming reign, too, because he was barely on the fucking show. Sammy Guevara has been on the show for the most part, and he's had some good matches with... The Ethan Page match was good. To me, I didn't really give a fuck just because I knew Ethan wasn't going to win. I liked the Jay Lethal match. The Jay Lethal match in the main event of Dynamite a few months ago. Actually, last month, coming out of Full Gear. I thought that was good. I liked the match he had with Tony Nese on Rampage a few weeks ago. I don't know. I feel like it was just... I feel like he just kind of felt like an afterthought. And the Inner Circle stuff against American Top Team, that was a total waste of that TNT title. Sammy should have been doing his own thing the entire time. Yeah, it was a good reign. I wouldn't say a great reign, but he did have some good matches. And, yeah, I feel like he never really got the recognition or the focus that he should have. To me, Sammy Guevara, that is. We'll see if Cody's third reign is any better than Sammy's or his previous two, but I wasn't a big fan of the title change on Friday night or Saturday or whenever it aired. Their third question, between WWE and AEW, what's your favorite minor show? What shows would you consider minor to begin with? So, like you said, NXT UK, for example. Minor show, I mean, NXT technically is a minor show because it is developmental. But it's still a major brand that airs for 2 hours every week on TV. So the major shows, I would say, are Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Rampage, and Dynamite. The minor shows, I would say, are NXT UK, 205 Live, Main Event, not really sure if that you would consider that, because no one watches Main Event aside from me. Main Event, NXT UK, 205 Live, Dark, and Elevation. Those are the 5 minor shows, and the 5 major would be Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, and Rampage. So, what would I consider minor to begin with? Those would be my minor. My favorite minor show would probably be NXT UK. 205 Live is basically the Dark of NXT. And it's most weeks, nowadays, not very good. Main Event is complete throwaway, obviously. Dark and Elevation... Elevation now is better because it's under an hour. Dark is very hit or miss. I don't give a fuck about the squash matches personally. There's no storylines mostly on those shows. I just don't care. NXT UK, people can shit on it, but it does have some very good matches. Some of the best matches in 2021 came from NXT UK. It has some decent storylines. A lot of it makes sense. It hasn't fallen to the wayside like NXT 2.0. As far as like the same people running it that were running NXT are now running NXT UK. Like Shawn Michaels and people like that, although Triple H isn't there. They're not doing takeovers. They haven't done one all year, which is unfortunate. But I still enjoy NXT UK for the most part. So that is probably far and away my favorite minor show. I just don't really care about the dark shows. Main Event is dark, and 205 Live is garbage now. So definitely NXT UK. And then finally he asks, what's going to happen at WWE Day 1? I guess it depends who makes the show, right? Who's sick, who's not sick, who can appear. But assuming the show happens as scheduled, we'll get into a full preview of the pay-per-view on WrestleRant Radio either tomorrow or a bonus audio show because we're doing the results of the 2021 year in review rewards, by the way. They just ended last night from WrestleRant.com. As far as predictions, I think Roman holds on to the championship regardless of whether it's a DQ finish, a non-finish, countout, or whatever. I do think Roman Reigns wins. So that, I think Arky Bro hold on to the Raw Tag Team titles. Maybe they lose it, and that's the genesis. That's kind of the catalyst for their split. I don't think that's going to happen yet. Maybe. I think Becky holds on to the Raw Women's Championship. I think Big E holds on to the WWE Championship. Drew's going to beat Moss, hopefully. Who gives a fuck? Are they doing Nakamura and Zayn? If they do, I think Nakamura wins. I don't know if they're doing that on TV or not. And there's probably more matches. Oh, Edge and Miz, and I think Edge wins that. Maybe Miz wins to set up the mixed tag at Rumble, and then Edge and Beth win that. I think Edge should win. I don't think Miz should be beating Edge personally. It would be a big win for him, but Miz, they're still, despite how he came back a few weeks ago, they're still kind of treating him like a goof. So Edge should not be losing to him, in my opinion, after beating Rollins a few months ago. So, that's what I expect to happen at Day 1. Again, we'll get into more full-on predictions, probably either on WrestleRant Radio tomorrow or in a separate video here on the channel at some point before the pay-per-view on Saturday. And that's going to do it, guys, for today's edition of #AskGSM, the final episode of 2021. And that was the final question from @U13A of the year. With that, the last question of the year had to do with Day 1 on Saturday, so very, very appropriate, I suppose. Thank you guys, as always, for not only supporting this episode, but just the show in general, all year round. We had some great stuff. We did a couple live shows, at least one I remember, over the summer for episode 400, which was a lot of fun. That was awesome. I hope to do more of that type of stuff in the future. I just don't have the time, and I can't say, we're going to go live every Wednesday, but doing stuff like that is always a blast. So I appreciate you guys' support of that show and this show and every other show we've done in 2021. I am proud to say I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think we've missed an episode weekly since 2015. I started doing the show in 2013. I did it for a summer, and then I put it on hiatus because I went to college. Brought it back in January of 2014. Did it weekly, every week on Mondays, up until like a 3-week stretch where I couldn't record because my laptop broke in late 2015. And since November of 2015, I think I've been able to do at least one episode of this show every week, whether it be a Monday or a Wednesday or put it up on a Thursday or Friday because I've been busy, especially in the last year or two. I think I've done at least one episode a week for the last 6 years at this point, which is fucking crazy. I don't think I missed a week. And let's keep that trend going into 2022. So thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Also, be sure to send in questions by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Be sure to drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself, and drop your question on this very video down below, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have a great rest of 2021. Happy New Year. We'll be back next Wednesday for our first episode of 2022. Until then, have an awesome one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road in 2022.